This is Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where each week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week we'll be speaking with Robert Warren of TooMuch.net. Adult Site Broker is proud to announce the launch of our new website, Adult Site Broker 3.0, at adultsitebroker.com. The look and feel of the new site is nice and up to date and easier to navigate. The new site also has links to our affiliate program, ASB Cash, and our new blog. Speaking of ASB Cash, we've doubled our affiliate payouts. That's right. Now when you refer sellers or buyers to us at Adult Site Broker, you'll receive 20% of our broker commission on any and all sales that result from that referral for life. You can either place a link to us on your site or refer buyers and sellers through an email introduction. ASB Cash is the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage. Check out asbcash.com for more details and to sign up. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're proud to offer for sale a network of 22 growing affiliate sites. These include adult and affiliate review sites and various top lists. The network has grown in traffic and income over time. This is due to the quality of the network's SEO. The network brings in large amounts of signups through pay-per-sale and rev share programs. There are also many two-tier affiliate signups generating income monthly. The seller will be available to the buyer with some ideas on how to generate extra revenue that he didn't have a chance to do himself and to train the new owner on the operation of the sites. We've just reduced the price on this listing from $474,000 to only $369,000. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is Robert Warren of TooMuch.net, as well as his own consulting firm. Rob, thanks for being back with us today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
It's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, Robert is a 29-year veteran of the adult industry, focusing on SEO and marketing. Many know him for his professionalism and mentorship. He's offered advice and guidance to company owners on down to new webmasters and sales reps. You can find him currently alongside longtime friend Mark Prince at TooMuch.net, handling marketing and SEO for the company. Rob has spoken at many adult shows, including AVN, Internet, the Phoenix Forum, Webmaster Access, and many more throughout the years. Rob, it's been a year since we spoke. So what's been going on in your business life since then?
Oh, just having a blast. I mean, it's amazing. You would think after so many years you would get bored of it, but it's getting more and more exciting. Since the last show, obviously, a lot of people heard what happened heard the show and started contacting me. And it was really, really nice just chatting with and meeting new people and people just wanting to get into the industry and getting advice. And I think my favorite part is just helping a lot of them avoiding the pitfalls of wanting to get into it, while other ones who were in it were calling me up and helping them redirect their focus, because they would have lost a lot of money if they continued on the way that they were doing. So it's so good to be able to help people out, and you provided me that opportunity to help even more people out. So greatly appreciate that.
Hey, you were one of our most listened to podcasts. You must have had your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, everyone listening to it.
As long as it wasn't my parole officer, yeah, sure.
That's a really good thing for sure. Now, during our last conversation, you'd mentioned that about half your life has been spent in the adult industry, and before that, you were a pastor. Now, the industry has faced a lot of attacks from many sources, including the religious right, Lord knows, pun intended. Can you understand their view, and how would you respond to them?
In part, I do understand their view, though I have to take a step back and say that the American versus the Canadian religious groups are radically different. And the key word there is radical.
Yeah.
up here in Canada, there's tends to be a lot more openness and forgiveness, and not necessarily forgiveness, but just inclusiveness.
Yeah.
Like my eldest, who's trans, the church just like, okay, like welcome with open arms, and
Oh man.
what does he go by? And it's like, okay, so I
Mm-hmm.
said the name, and whenever we've gone, it's like everybody from the pastor right down through whoever we're in contact with says his name the way he wants it,
Yeah.
and is happy and treats him perfectly normally, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. Yet in the U.S., that's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
The religious group in the U.S. has really gotten their hands too much into politics, and
Absolutely.
has not only infected that, has become a virus, but has influenced it in totally the wrong ways. That is nothing, and I don't mean to say it this way, but it
Oh,
has
go for it.
nothing to do with biblical teachings or what the Bible
Mm-hmm.
says
Right.
or anything. It has everything to do with their opinions and
Mm-hmm.
how they want things to, for themselves, not
Sure.
for what the Bible is. So, um, I'm years ago when I was being interviewed once. I don't know if you remember, they had a guy named Pastor Phelps. He's from the Westboro Baptist Church, and he was the leader of a group that's called God Hates Fags. And this organization would go literally to, if you had a fallen soldier or something, and if he was homosexual, that they would go and picket the funeral.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah,
Terrible.
and so I remember when somebody in the adult radio show business wanted to interview them, they had nobody that could stand up or at least could talk to them.
Sure.
And somebody got a hold of, they got a hold of me, and I was a regular on the show because they did it every Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and they got a hold of me, and so I had it out with this guy. And initially, at first, we were fine, but when I started using logic and actual biblical facts, he was lost,
Oh, I bet.
and then it came down to opinions. And that being said, and to answer your question, what's happening is they're attacking not just the women right now, but they're going to be heading towards areas that they're going to be removing all the rights for the gay community.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get rid of the marriage. That's their goals, is to take America in like 100 years more in the past,
Sure.
and they're already working on the voting.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened with, and it started with like Falwell and those guys,
Yep,
the moral majority. Love that
immoral
name.
majority.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened is the religious powers that be have hijacked the right, totally hijacked them, and they've somehow convinced a lot of people that anything that isn't the norm is wrong, and they've gotten the politicos to go along with them.
Yeah,
And let's face it, the the right of well, all of politics in America is jacked up, and it needs a total redo. The two-party system is outmoded, and they're just, it doesn't serve the people. About 85% of the people, I believe, think that abortion should be legal, and yet we've got one of our two parties voting against it every time. So,
well, if I can just interject here,
sure.
I can show you the hypocrisy of all of this in a very short sentence, and that is that if
Hmm.
you remember during COVID, these people were standing up and they were screaming, I'm not going to wear masks. And what was their chant? My body, my choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, when it comes to women and abortion and all this, they've forgotten that
Obviously.
mantra,
Yeah.
and now they're saying, basically, your body, our choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They try to tell
That's the
people how to live
hypocrisy.
their lives. Yeah. They tell people how to live their lives. And, that's kind of un-American.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind
So
of
it's
undemocratic for any democratic country. I like yours better. So last time we talked about you being a family man with 5 kids, and you
mhm,
mentioned your eldest is trans, and you have
yeah.
another child with. I'll see
It's
if
like
I said this
Dubovitz.
right. Dubowitz, okay, syndrome.
Dubovitz.
Now,
Yeah.
how has all this affected your business life?
I'm going to say in one word, empathy.
Ah,
I mean, I've always tried to read and to learn about the industry and those who are within it. The various cultures, the fetishes, the opinions, and
sure.
during that time, there was a lot that have escaped me. In other words, that I just
Hmm.
couldn't get a handle on.
Right.
And I knew that there was areas that I needed growth on. People would say, oh, I'm trans, for
Hmm.
example. And I'd be like, that's good, but what the hell does that really mean? And now that I'm going through this with my own teen, I can now find myself at trade shows or just talking on the webmaster boards or wherever, and I can actually identify and I can strike up a conversation. I can relate
Yes.
and empathize, rather than asking awkward questions or being like somebody who's just like, you're kind of at arm's length, do it, but do it
Yeah.
over there,
Right.
and so rather than just brush them off or ignore them, I can engage, hoping that they'll understand that my main purpose in talking is that I do consider people in the adult industry like like a family,
It is. Yeah.
and if you remember the old Lilo and Stitch, what is it, Ohana? Like, means family, and family means no one gets left behind or forgotten.
Hmm.
And as we move ahead as an industry, we can't leave people behind or forget them. And that also means the various smaller groups or whatever groups. And, we have to make sure that they're aware that we're here, and that we can relate,
Okay. Yeah.
and we're not going to ignore them.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, you might want to turn the sound off on your computer there. So somebody wants you there. So the past few years we've dealt as an industry with COVID, just like the rest of the world. Do you think COVID has had a positive or negative impact on our industry, and why?
The positive is, I think, a lot of us who are there and helping people out to create websites and all of that, that people are they're trying to play it smart, and so individuals who want to. I'm finding that more and more people who are now stuck at home or whatever, they're all of a sudden going, well, let's create a website,
Hmm.
and let's do this. So that grew. A lot of people grew on that.
Sure.
There's also people who are obviously stressed and need relief. And so a lot of the sales, specifically in the cam industry, grew. That's
Yeah.
because cams provide a relationship, so to speak. Not
Hmm.
a necessarily a healthy one, but it did. And so there was a lot of loneliness, and so that side of it grew. On the negative, we lost too many damn good people,
Yeah.
and also COVID drove a wedge between the rest of the industry because, as
Yeah.
you already know on the boards, some people refused to accept COVID as a reason for things,
Yeah.
and others were, there, whether to get vaccinated or not, and there was a huge battle going on constantly.
Yeah.
And as we kept on fighting over that, more and more people died.
Yeah, I kind of
Or
found
not
I,
sick.
I kind of found on the boards and in society in general, those were the same people who were staunch Trump supporters, almost to a person. And quite frankly, I had most of those people blocked, at least on XBiz, where I spend most of my time, because I
Yeah,
just don't have time. Well, I don't have time for politics anymore. Since January 6th, my interest in politics is almost nil, except where it affects our industry directly. So I think that those are the same people, and they've been invisible to me, which is a real good thing.
Yeah. The other thing is a sad thing is the content, and that is that
Sure.
we already had a whole crap load of content on the net, but we were slowly reaching our limit as to what people wanted to watch, and then whatever was left was left. We couldn't shoot anymore,
Yeah.
basically, and then all of a sudden, when people were shooting, we started getting new niches. We
Yeah.
started getting COVID porn, mask porn, quarantine porn.
Yeah,
You know, it's
exactly.
like, fuck, like we really need a reminder of this, you know? And then on the other side,
it was
we had,
inevitable.
yeah, but then we had like places like OnlyFans. I mean, really, they only happened because people were bored with porn movies and or gave up hope that the girl honestly enjoyed what she was doing. I
Well,
mean,
I don't think the people who are the consumers of porn were necessarily bored with porn movies. I think that what happened there was the whole creator thing took off because so many people were either out of work or just had a lot of time on their hands. And then obviously the whole OnlyFans and their, other companies like it, they took off because people found out you can make a lot of money there. And the whole creator thing took off. So I think that was a huge plus for the industry.
well, people, when they watch, for example, webcams or OnlyFans, outside of just the appearance and visuals, they're there because they want to develop a relationship.
Sure.
I've always said this when it comes to webcams, and I join OnlyFans with that. When you see somebody as beautiful, those girls get hit up, or those people on OnlyFans get hit up so much with people wanting to have a connection.
Sure.
When you have a lot of that now more, especially during COVID when it was quarantine, the other porn stuff that was on the tube sites, you know, you can only search for a topic so much before it's just like, I've seen it all. Or I've seen what I've wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, good or bad, it still boils down to, you know, we lost too many people that we'll never see again.
So we've recently seen major companies who are stable suddenly have lots of issues. MindGeek obviously recently lost some senior executives along with over 200 of their employees. Now, is this something you saw coming, and what do you think will be the fallout?
Well, remember when I talked about Phelps and those guys and the Christians when I talked a long time ago? I mean, they're behind a lot of this stuff. Not him in particular, but these religious groups are trying to attack, and they're not going to stop at Pornhub.
Right.
Eventually, I mean, you know, these credit card companies and everybody are going to start, the processors are going to start going to like X videos and hamsters. They're going to be down the road as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to get into, you know, like the stolen content, and with all the efforts of the content producers matter will help, you know, it's going to help, or sorry, I was going to say it's all going to be part of taking it down. Because at the time, and we're talking a lot of tube sites out there.
Right.
And all of those tube sites don't have original content. I mean, they have something, it's called a scraper. And they just basically go to the other tube sites and scrape all of the movies and then add it to their repertoire.
Yeah, many do, yeah.
But now that Pornhub and that have to have all of the IDs and all the paperwork and everything, what do you think is going to happen to all these other tube sites that don't have that?
That's true.
They're going to be in the firing line eventually.
Yeah, if you can get to them. You know, I mean,
if you can get to them. But
there's so many of them, man.
Okay, let's put it this way. Free, to me, has a lifespan.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Because look at all remember when we used to have all those free torrent sites?
Yeah.
That you could download music and videos and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Where are they?
There's still some. Like, there's still some up.
But not as much as they used to.
Oh, no, of course not. Because
the ones that are up now, if somebody really, really wanted to get to them, they could, you know?
That's true.
Once again, I get back to the point of, you know, when we were younger, if watching the same type of porn was okay, then we would be perfectly happy with our first Playboy, and that would last us for life. But
I
we're
remember.
always wanting to see more. We're always wanting to get into more things, and then our imagination takes over.
Yeah.
And then, eventually, content companies, they're just pushing out stuff, and they don't really thinking about, it's a cookie cutting thing.
Well, and Rob, I think here's the thing, and I've always said this. People say, "Well, what's going to work?" If you look at the most successful producers and companies and websites, these are the people that have a niche. They do content within that niche, and sometimes it's quite specialized. And those are the people who have continued to do well. Are the people who have really specialized.
Yes. And the other thing is that, remember what I was talking about webcams? There are certain video clips or movies where you can tell that the model is like really into it, right? You can tell that
Sure.
he or she is thoroughly enjoying it, and you get a connection with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can come out with models and it still gets back to what is connecting to the users.
Yeah.
And when they look at her eyes or when they watch the video clip, the ones that stand out in your mind right now, if you've ever watched porn, I don't know if you have or not, but if you ever have,
Of course.
the movies that stand out in your mind are the ones that you've made a connection with the model that drew some type of desire or passion or feeling,
Yeah.
that you've made a connection. It's like, that person's really into what I'm into. And I'm
Yeah.
going to keep watching this video again because I can relate or I feel something more
Right.
with that particular video. Like,
Or at least they make you think they're into it. Acting
well,
comes
of
into
course,
it.
it's all a game. But at the end of the day, you can have 100 videos, but you might only watch 2 or 3 over again a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because you've connected to the model, you've connected to the scene, you've
Mm-hmm.
connected to the action.
Sure.
And right now, are we really coming out with content that's doing that, or are we just trying to fill just fill the void with what we've got? And
Right.
sometimes I look at sometimes some of the stuff, and I just shake my head because you could tell that the model, when they're
Just
looking
wrote in.
away,
Yeah.
they're looking to where their paycheck is sitting on the
Exactly.
table.
It's on the ceiling.
Yeah.
So so you're so you're coming close to 30 years in this industry. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Over the years you worked with multiple companies and still are. Do you ever see yourself retiring?
Oh God. There's an old saying that, you hear people say that you're a lucky person if you can love what you work at.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do, at least what I think I do, is I connect with people. And I
Mm-hmm.
really find that, the connections are what keeps me alive and keeps me going
Mm-hmm.
year after year, talking to new people, helping them out, learning about them,
Right.
growing like that. I think that if this, I'm going to call it the new industry, if it starts going in a way that I simply can't support it
Mm-hmm.
anymore,
Right.
in allowing
How would
content.
that be?
Honestly, I've seen more simulated underage content,
Oh, okay.
and I've seen
But that's something the credit card companies will clamp down on really fast, though.
uh, there's if you look at POV stuff and you look at more of this family stuff, incest and all that
Mm-hmm.
that's coming out and all of this, and you just like, where the hell did all this come from? I mean, remember the old days
The
when
reason they have it, sadly, is it's something that turns somebody on.
yeah, but now we're getting into this whole realm where the content that's being shot is kind of going in a direction that just is like, whoa, wait a minute here. There was times when we wouldn't have even touched this,
Hmm.
you know.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
people that are in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
we have actually started to lose our connection with one another. And let me explain this.
Okay.
Like, I still got a lot of great friends, and for the past few years, and I've made friends, but if you're somebody here who, for example, if you take a break, like I've known one or two people who have taken a break and just say, look, I'm stepping back from the industry.
Hmm.
I'm just going to, go do something else. And then they come back after like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
Like, I know one guy who was like king of the world. He'd go to a trade show. Everybody wanted to be with him. Everybody wanted to be there. And
Hmm.
now, and he just felt burnt at the time.
Sure.
But then he wanted to come back, and then it was just like started to be nobody's ever heard of him.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's people now that think that they're legendary, but see what happens when you don't post for about a year or two.
Well, hey, here's the thing, okay, and not everybody posts, Rob. But
Yeah.
but here's
Oh, but yeah,
here's the thing, okay? If you go away for a period of time, a whole new group of people join the industry and they don't know you. So to
yep,
them, you're new. You need to reestablish your reputation
yep.
with them. Well, you need to establish your reputation because you don't have one.
And that also includes that awards, at least in my mind, don't mean diddly squat.
We
Awards
agree.
last. Your winning of an award lasts till New Year's.
If that
Because it's like,
that's a
oh, we
whole
were.
that's a whole other subject.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. I've got, I've seen people that tout those things, and it's like, yeah, okay, maybe that was back in that year. What about now?
Yeah, and let's face it. Some awards are legitimate, most are not, and
I'll go with that.
it does seem like a small group of people win the lion's share of the awards, and it all comes
Yep,
back to the Bro Club.
yep, and advertisers and things like that.
Oh well, that kind of goes without saying, doesn't it? That kind of goes
Yeah,
without saying.
we,
There are exceptions. You get somebody like Brad from Mojo Host who has won so many awards. Well, he deserves
uh,
it. He has a great company. But, that doesn't mean there aren't other good web hosts out there.
yeah, you and I are entering dangerous territory right now.
So, I you know what? I don't really give a flip.
Yeah,
Look, I've got the people who like me and the people who hate me, and
yeah,
it's not necessarily going to change. And
yeah,
like I said, Brad's very deserving. Okay, I
yes,
congratulate him every time he wins an award. With that said, he's not the only web host. Okay, and there are people who win awards year after year after year where their competition potentially for the award, they should win something. Let's face it, it's a popularity contest, and you're right. The being
okay.
an advertiser uh, quite often is what wins you these things. So
Well, I'm going to say that.
if somebody's offended by that, I'm sorry. No, I'm not really sorry. So
Well,
not
if I
sorry.
can end it with this, Brad from Mojo, I
Yeah,
know you're listening. If you win the XBiz um, Newcomer of the Year award,
that could be a problem. Yeah, that could be.
I'm going to
Okay.
have a problem.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We
That
know
could.
it's rigged.
Yeah, that could definitely be a problem. Yeah,
Best new boss.
and if you win the newcomer of the year,
Oh yeah,
I've got a problem with that. Okay,
yeah.
so one
That got
thing,
lost in the mail a long time ago.
yes, it did. So, well, mine too. So one thing I've noticed is that you don't promote yourself at all on the boards
Yeah.
these days, while others do. Why is that?
Well, I mean, we just had the quick conversation. I mean, I don't really covet awards, um, and you know my feelings about that. I think, as I said, um, it's a domino effect.
Hmm.
Like, on the boards, as I said, I talk to people like family and you, and people request help and all that stuff, and I I I don't sit there and say, hey, I'm an SEO monkey, you know. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it when people use the word expert or that somebody knows everything about everything.
Well, nobody does.
Um, it really does, because there is no such thing. I'm sorry,
That's true.
but I get several Skypes and emails a day, and they basically start off all the same. It's like, so and so recommended you that I should ask you this question, and and I'm there and I help them out. And if people see what I'm writing on the boards, you notice that when I post things, I don't, I post about the topic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really, I just don't push it out there. The
Right.
first order of my business is to gain trust in a relationship,
Sure. Sure.
because people buy and work with those people that they trust.
Right.
And if you're not trustworthy
Mm-hmm.
to be honest and do what you say you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
then, and if that's what you're doing, then a new client is built.
Ah,
Clients at the end of the day are my boss,
yeah. Sure.
and I just
Mine
don't
too.
perform. And but I also need to train and teach them
Sure.
as well, not just to show them that they made the right choice in
Right.
me, but we can also have higher levels of discussions. And with that being said, if you're training somebody, if you're teaching somebody, if you've developed a relationship with them, they're more willing to take it in and know that when you're giving them advice and you're talking to them about their site or SEO or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I do more than just SEO. I'm giving people advice on their business and everything from marketing to, what to buy and what to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they do that because they trust, because
Right.
they honestly know that I care about who they are and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm helping them. I want to see them succeed. And if they're honestly at that point where they really do want to succeed for the
Mm-hmm.
right reasons,
Right.
then I'm there to help them along, and that's great. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, when you got people who have succeeded, bosses talk,
Yeah.
and when bosses talk, they recommend. And at times that will be me. And so
Sure.
when that happens, I would rather get a client from a referral, which I do, than promote myself, because, you're starting off from squares, back down to square zero again. But
Yeah.
if someone says, "Hey, this guy's really helped my company. We've grown.
Mm-hmm.
Our traffic has grown by 1,000% or 2,000, and he's really helped me out in more than ways than one. I really think you need to talk to this guy." I want a client like that,
Of course. Of
and
course. Don't we all?
because that guy will call me up and he's saying, "Look, you got very well recommended, and you know what can you do? What can we do together?" And then
Sure.
we're on good terms to start.
Yep. So thinking back over the years, what is it that you miss in this industry that isn't around anymore that you believe we could all benefit from?
There's so many different answers.
Well, give me one.
I guess the first way that I could answer that is with the number 42.
Jackie Robinson?
No, no, uh, uh, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
But actually, if I was to count, and this is why I say 42, if I count, and I have, how many webmaster boards I have on my list,
Mm-hmm.
there's like 42.
Hmm.
But actively right now,
Mm-hmm.
like you're basically looking at XBiz, GFY, Apparel, and that kind of stuff, right? Like
Yep.
there's very, very, very few that are
Sure.
left. And most of those other message boards, if you remember back in the day, I mean, they were all just basically promotional tools for the affiliate companies.
Pretty much.
And affiliate companies would advertise on these boards, and so everybody would start them up. And but
Mm-hmm.
now that there's not the affiliate dollars going into those boards, suddenly they're off.
Oh yeah. And I think the whole message board concept has been taken over by Facebook groups and the like.
Yeah, but back in the day, without tubes, affiliate programs basically ruled more of the message boards.
Sure.
That gave us the chance to connect to each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Well you still have it on XBiz and also GFY, although I don't spend a lot of time
oh,
over there.
so
Uh,
limited.
Well, yeah, because quite frankly, here's the biggest problem I find, and it's something that's infected all social media, including adult social media, is politics, and that is what has driven most people away from the industry boards, the ones that still
Yep,
exist.
yeah, I agree with you. But
And I
but
mean, XBiz used to have tons of posts and tons of questions about the business. and hey, I'm starting this, and will you take a look at this site? And it also would have a lot more people who were experienced and had been around a long time and were actual owners of sites and companies on there. You don't see much of that anymore. And the ones who are on a lot less because, quite frankly, they don't want to go through all the political posts and everything. There's just too
Yeah,
much
I mean,
BS. I mean,
yes.
all it's become is a bitch forum.
Back in the day when there was all this, I think I was at one point I was moderator on 6 of them,
Hmm.
and what I think is also we've done is we've lost the ability, and I mean this in all sincerity, we've lost the ability to mentor one another,
Mm-hmm.
and which also means having a code of conduct.
Right.
And we found that out especially this week when somebody came on the board and basically told somebody something that they should not have.
Hmm.
And this person was a mentor and a veteran, and the person called her a cunt.
Uh-oh.
And I was stunned
Mhm.
because this is a veteran. This is somebody who's done so much for so many people. And
Oh,
this other
that's a good
person,
way. It's a good way to get yourself banned, which hopefully they were.
they were.
Good.
Actually, was according to somebody, it was like the quickest ban ever happened.
Good.
But
Was this on
there's,
X? Was this on XBiz?
yes.
Ah, must have missed
Um,
it.
yeah, that's what happens when you miss a meeting.
Yeah. Well.
um, but we have lost the ability to mentor one another, and
Sure.
that's why I think that I've been around for so long. Is I do that,
Yeah.
and with that comes along with the vanguard. The old days is that there
Mm-hmm.
was a code of conduct.
Yeah. Well,
Trade
forget
shows were
that.
more about trade shows were about adult networking and fun,
Yeah.
showing off, making entertainers truly porn stars.
Mm-hmm.
Industry veterans were legends and experts, and
Mm-hmm.
now we've got this slick software that's out there that in actuality is very limited, but everybody thinks that they can get away with doing their own designing and programming and SEO and marketing without the need of anyone else who's actually trained for it.
Hmm.
And back in the day, we had people that when they came in to actually do business, they had capital behind them rather than a limited budget that basically is going to be a
Sometimes. Sometimes.
drop in the water. um,
Sometimes you had upstarts though, and some of the upstarts did very well.
yeah, and they did. I think the key thing, and this has happened in the past as it does now, and that the one thing that has lacked over the years is creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you've got design and content marketing and SEO, but if you get one company who does it, who's a little bit creative, and then everyone else steals it and reformats it and does the same process.
Sure.
And, now people just kind of like I challenge anyone to find an adult company, for example, a webcam site where more than 80% of the traffic comes from, for example, social media.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, we didn't really have social media as much,
Right.
right? We worked really hard on, you got traffic, and we worked on analytics, and we used it
Mm-hmm.
properly,
Right.
and we got people back onto, the proper way of being able to build a site.
Yep.
Now you have people who call themselves experts who go out and they're like, oh, social media is the way to go. And I'm like, my God, I have seen so many traffic overviews of multiple sites, and every single one of them, when you look at social media, it is down to, of all of the traffic, whether it's a million, hits or whatever like that, of all the traffic, less than, let's say, 4 to 8% of all of those companies are from social media. And
Hmm.
if you take that number, you can break it down even more
Sure. By
and
platform. Yeah.
to YouTube and all
Mm,
this kind of stuff, right?
sure.
But most of them are under 3%. And, you know, I can think of like 7 campsites right off the bat in the past 2 years who
Mm,
tried to rely solely on social media, probably because it was free to them, and they spent so
sure.
much time on it.
Sure.
And some of them got some traffic, some of them's very little. They spent massive amount of time or whatever, but at the end of the day, the conversions simply weren't there,
Okay.
and
So,
they had little impact on sales.
yeah. So, some who are listening to the podcast have either just started or are going to soon start their own website. What advice can you give them to do and what not to do?
Well, we were just talking about it. I mean,
Uh-huh.
anyone who's claiming that they're to be an expert or promises you tons of traffic at little or no cost, well, the reality is it does take effort and cost. And if
Sure.
you don't think that it will happen, then you're going to be disappointed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And try not to rely upon free online software for things like SEO or for whatever
Right.
to solve all your problems, because it only handles a certain amount of your website and it's very limited.
Right.
But you do need, and this goes back to what we talked about before, we need mentors and we need knowledgeable people that give advice. and
Right.
and people have gotten away from doing that, for looking for those mentors, because they think that this piece of software, when they Google it, is going to solve their problems.
Sure.
And if you're shooting content, shoot what you enjoy, and
Right.
if not, then do your research. Shoot what your users want or will want. Learn it, study it,
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to admit that you're wrong and change. Seek out a mentor
Mm-hmm.
if you can,
Sure.
and they might be expensive, but the cost of you making mistakes is going to be even higher.
Yeah, and mentors don't always cost money. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
my mentor, and he's the one who introduced me to you when I first started in the industry, and I consider you one as well because you were always very helpful with your advice. Was Bob Rice, and
Yeah.
uh, and I know Bob's name isn't necessarily positive to everyone who
Hey,
may.
you and I had the same mentor.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, Bob's name might not be positive to everyone who's listening because of some things a company he was associated with did at the end.
I've learned that recently too.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Bob walks on water. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met in this industry, and he really gave me, um, well, more than once. He actually got me started not only in the industry. He had I think it was an audio or a video a program that talked about starting a site. And I wish I had taken more of the advice because when I got it, I was already far down the road and had made a lot of mistakes. But then Bob was instrumental in me getting into the website brokering. So because he was doing it at one time. So I've got really a lot to thank Bob for. So mentors don't always cost money. Sometimes, and quite
Yeah,
often, it's just somebody that you meet at a show or you connect with on XBiz, which I think is really the biggest, most valuable tool of that type of platform is to ask questions. And you can ask questions of the community on XBiz. And that's one of the things I love about it, is I'm always there to answer the questions. You're always there to answer the questions. Mark's always there to answer the questions. The regulars, and unfortunately, we're down to just the regulars. Steve from Groovy is always very giving with his time. The people who are the regulars will answer questions if you ask them. And if you reach out to them and send them a private message, people are more than happy to talk to you.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that we need the mentors, and
Yeah. I
um,
think they're out there. I still think there's
there
some.
there are people out there who, when they make suggestions, sometimes they make suggestions that are not necessarily in the best interest.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, and for example, if you remember the days, where it's like, oh, who do you recommend to do this? Well, why don't you use this company, because you recommended that company because you get, let's say, 5%
Well, yeah.
of the sale.
And that obviously still goes on. But I'll tell you something, even in the case where I will get a referral fee or a commission from somebody, and I don't go searching those out because I get offered them, as I'm sure you do on a daily basis. And I turn away virtually every deal
Yeah,
because they want me, they want to put me on commission because obviously I wear the marketing hat too, and I tell them that's not what I do. But if it's a service that I believe is worthy, I will recommend them. But I'm not going to recommend somebody just to make money. I'll recommend
Yeah,
them if I believe in them, as I know you
yeah.
will.
I've never accepted any of those offers because my reasoning being is that if I accept that, then I will never ever be able to give you 100% accuracy and truthfulness that my recommendation is true and the
Sure.
best it can be. And yes, it's okay for you to check out somebody, but if you honestly think that maybe it might go somewhere else, then okay.
Hey,
You know,
I don't think there's really anything wrong if you do believe in it to accept
I know,
something, I can hey, you're a better man than I am. And I
but
haven't really taken a lot of commissions from people. I
it
mainly
it
do
has
it in the case of like processing and things like that
yeah,
where
it has nothing
obviously
to
it's
do with
handed
that.
out.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do. That's just me and what I do.
Okay.
Anybody, I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody who does that. I'm just
Well,
saying
you
for
better
me.
not.
Yeah. So okay. So getting back to the other. Okay. So we talked about seeking on a mentor. We talked about finding a trusted processing company. Find a good industry lawyer. Please, for God's
Mhm.
sakes, try not to use WordPress. Things for SEO. If you're going to have pictures up and videos, don't use numbers on them like 23423 JPEG because
Right. You need a
Google
descriptor.
can't rank that and can't
Right.
collect that,
Why do you,
index it.
by the way, why do you say not to use WordPress? Because I'm a WordPress believer, and my sites are in WordPress. Obviously, I don't have membership sites, but why do you say not to use WordPress?
There are at times, and Mark would jump in on this one as well. There are at times when it comes to programming and
Hmm.
or various other things, even with SEO, that
Right.
it's more difficult working with WordPress than creating a different site. Also, there are certain security things that can happen with WordPress that doesn't happen with other sites. Now, I know that Brad at Mojo and all that can create some certain security, but I've seen more breaches happen on WordPress and problems happening with WordPress than I have
Oh,
with
don't
other
I know?
things.
Yeah, I know. There's
So
problems.
that's all that I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I don't want to bash them at all. I'm just saying my recommendation personally is for that.
Hmm. Okay.
The other thing is never assume that your brilliant idea is groundbreaking because sure as shooting somebody has thought of it in the past and they failed and find out why.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
uh, be flexible with your programmer
Right.
on advice. Be gracious, uplifting on the webmaster boards. Don't get into a pissing match. But finally, is read, and read more.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with strong, wise leadership, and you should be able to go far.
Now, any general words of advice to people in the industry that you would give before we close out?
I would think in the industry, and this is got to listen here. I've said this before. The industry is the only, and I'm going to use the term army. Okay, we're the only army that shoots its own wounded. We
So
have to
true.
stop attacking one another.
Yes.
We have to start helping each other through, as I said, mentoring, but mostly support those in the battle for our rights
Right.
and be aware to fight all the attacks that are happening from the government society, from
Yes.
owners to models, everyone.
Yeah.
Because if we're just constantly nailing one another, we're missing out on on what's really attacking us.
Yeah, it's a circular firing squad, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that would be my only advice to the industry is like we literally are one of the only armies that shoot its own wounded.
That's funny, but it's true. Hey, Rob, I'd like to thank you for being our guest again today on Adult Site Broker Talk, and I hope we'll get a chance to do this again soon.
I hope so too, and thank you so much, Bruce, for the opportunity and also for giving of your time and expertise in mentoring other people through just the podcast. I appreciate all that you're doing as well, and it's a pleasure every time to be here.
Thank you, Rob. My broker tip today is part 7 of what to do to make your site more valuable for when you decide to sell it later. Last week we talked about trademarking your site and ways to make it unique. Next, when you decide to sell your site, make sure you have the following information available for potential buyers. Detailed information about your company, your website, and any other aspects of your operation that potential buyers may want to find out about. This should include, for a pay site, a detailed inventory of your content, number of images, and number of videos. How much of it is exclusive and how much is non-exclusive. Financial information for at least the last 3 years if your company is that old. This should include sales reports, profit and loss statements, and billing reports. Get all the information organized in a legible format that a good broker can use to sell your property. If you decide to sell it yourself, organize a list of potential buyers and start the process of contacting them. Be realistic about what your company is worth. In today's market, the kiss of death is overpricing your property. Is there anything a potential buyer needs to know, such as, are you being sued? Do you have any substantial debts or anything else? Don't let these things be a surprise to the potential buyer. They'll either find out before the sale and not buy, or they'll find out after the sale and you'll have another lawsuit on your hands. Disclose everything. We'll talk about this subject more next week. And next week we'll be speaking with Jay Copita of Why Not. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Robert Warren. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.